UFC Freedom 250 happened on the south lawn of the White House this week, and it was absolutely beautiful. The fights were amazing, and the celebration of America was excellent. There were videos in between each fight showcasing the greatness of America and our armed forces. Each fighter was escorted to the ring by a member of the military, and most of the 4,000 people in attendance were our active duty military. There were some people who were upset that the event took place and was a rousing success. I had AI do a deep dive to create a composite of the average person distraught about this event, and here's what they came up with. Unfortunately, we on the right can't hear criticism at the moment because we're too busy being awesome. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay, welcome in, everyone. I have two topics that we are going to get into this week. We're going to discuss the UFC Freedom 250 as well as the tentative Iran deal that is being signed. The preliminary one, not the finalized one, which will come later, but this preliminary deal. We're going to go through the bullet points of the deal. We're going to talk about every aspect of it. It's going to be our main topic this week because it's a big one. It's important. And foreign policy is something that we get into a lot here because I really enjoy it. It's an area where I can say I know just a little bit about. So we're going to talk about that. Before we do that, our favorite comment from last week comes from at DJ Jordan 1019, who said, quote, "The left cheats," end quote. Concise, accurate. I appreciate the response. Obviously, that is in reference to the California election, the Los Angeles election of Spencer Pratt, where we went through last week. I had a lot of comments on this video about nonsense saying, oh, you don't have any proof, you don't have this and that. Guys, I do have proof. The proof is that they legalized the cheating. You understand? Ballot harvesting is a form of cheating. The fact that there are people on the streets right now who are interviewing the homeless population in LA and saying that they were paid to vote, many of them on video saying that they were paid to vote. The whole election is just dirty pool and obvious. And it's so obvious that they're not even trying to hide it anymore. At least there used to be some shame in trying to cheat and rig elections, but it just feels like there's not anymore. And when you legalize cheating, it doesn't mean that the cheating is any less evil. So thank you for the comment, DJ Jordan 1019. I appreciate anything that you people want to say to me. The people out there in the world, anything you want to leave in the comments, I always appreciate. I read all of them. So anyway, let's get on with our large topic for the week. The Iran deal. Topic one, the Iran deal. This is a memorandum or memo, whatever they call it, of understanding. It's not necessarily a deal. It's not a treaty. It's not a signed agreement. It's going to be a signed memorandum, but it's not really a binding resolution, this memorandum. It was, for the most part, negotiated by J.D. Vance and the team around him. I will say this. We're going to go through this entire thing. It's 1.5 pages. It's not very long. It's a 14 bullet point outline for what a deal with Iran would look like. I will say this at the jump. We're going to go through it point by point. I do not like this deal. Period. Full stop. Don't like it. It is a bad deal for America. And we'll get into all the implications of the deal at the very, very end. But we're going to go through this point by point. I'm going to stop, and I might have some things to say about each of them. Like I said, it's 14 points, so it might take a minute, but it's not very, very long. Number one, there's an immediate ceasefire. Now, this includes Lebanon in the deal, which is going to be difficult to enforce because Lebanon is an interesting country. Israel, first of all, didn't sign on to this agreement. Israel doesn't like the deal. They have the same opinion that I do. I do not think it's a good deal for America. The reason why Lebanon is included in the ceasefire and why this is going to be completely ridiculous to expect is because Lebanon has two governments. There is the actual official government of Lebanon, and then there's Hezbollah. And Hezbollah, when I say it's two governments, Hezbollah is as powerful or more powerful than the government of Lebanon. So we can say, well, Lebanon's not at war with Israel. Okay, but they kind of are, guys. You understand? Hezbollah is at war with Israel. Hezbollah is not managing the ceasefire. So when Iran says, well, you have to respect the ceasefire in Lebanon, they say, well, the government of Lebanon is not doing anything. It's these terrorists. You can't hold Lebanon responsible for these terrorists. You absolutely can. because they allow it to happen. Iran is also funding Hezbollah and their attacks. You saw this with the negotiations so far, where they'll say Israel violated a ceasefire. When Hezbollah throws rockets into Israel and then Israel bombs Lebanon, that's not Israel violating the ceasefire. That's Lebanon violating the ceasefire. Anyway, that's point one. It's kind of going to be difficult to enforce. Obviously, Israel is not under the control, but very kind of beholden to the United States in a lot of ways. So they're going to respect the United States' wishes. However, I think it's unrealistic to expect them not to fight back when Lebanon throws bombs into their country. So we'll see. That's just point one. It's ceasefire. Okay, everyone wants a ceasefire. Great, great, great. Everyone except me, apparently, wants a ceasefire. Adjust that camera. Number two, respect the sovereignty of each other. Again, this seems like common sense, not anything big there. Respecting the sovereignty of another nation seems pretty good. And number three, you have 60 days to reach a final agreement. Okay, they're both agreeing to, within 2 months, reach some sort of finalized conclusion. This is and memorandum of understanding is basically an outline for what the negotiations will be. These are not guarantees. These are just things that you acknowledge each country wants. So the final deal will be really where we judge. But the next couple of these things are ridiculous. Number four, the U.S. will immediately remove its naval blockade, allowing Iran passage through the straits, and say that we're not going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, this is ridiculous. This has been one of the big holdup points for this ongoing conflict because Iran has disrupted international shipping through a body of water they do not own. They do not own international waters, yet we've allowed them to disrupt shipping. My solution to this has been very simple because you've seen all these cowards on the left mostly, but also on the right, who have said that Iran has the trump card, guys. They're going to close the strait. Guys, listen to me here. The reason why Iran was able to close the strait is because we didn't have the units in place to ensure that it was going to be open. It's not because we are incapable of keeping it open. If we partner more with our European allies, we don't really need to, but it would be nice if they want to share the cost. Most of the oil going through there is traveling to Europe. It's not traveling to America. So we force the Europeans to bring their naval forces to the strait. We can guarantee that it's going to stay open. You understand? We don't need Iran's guarantee. We put enough ships and enough people and enough material over the strait. Iran has no trump card. The idea that we are supposed to kowtow to Iran because they are able to block the strait is absurd. It's not true. We do not need to negotiate with terrorists. We don't need to be in fear that they're going to disrupt global shipping. No, we just need to put more material in the strait and it'll be fine. I promise you it'll be fine. They didn't have control of the strait before the war. So negotiating for them to give up control of the strait is not a victory for America. We're going back to the status quo. This is not a victory for Trump. It's not a big cap or a feather in your cap. It's ridiculous. They already don't have the right to control the strait. Period. Full stop. We shouldn't be negotiating over it. It's ridiculous. Number five, Iran's not allowed to charge tolls for the strait. And you're supposed to enter discussion about what international rights to the waterway mean. Again, this was not happening before the war. So this isn't a victory for the United States. You could say it's back to status quo. Nothing so far. 5 bullet points. None of this is beneficial for the U.S. We are 0 for 5 in these talks. Number 6, the U.S. is going to pledge $300 billion for reconstruction and economic development. What are you talking about? This one has been unclear. I don't know what it's saying. It's making it sound like the U.S. is going to help fund Iranian economic development. J.D. Vance is saying, no, that's not the case. What are we talking about this $300 billion for? Are we releasing $300 billion of Iranian sanctioned money to Iran? The answer looks to be yes. So in effect, we are giving them $300 billion. That is absolutely absurd. It is crazy to me that you would entertain the idea of giving any money, $1, to the Iranian government at a point in time. This goes hand in hand, before we get into this, hand in hand with number 7. Number 7, we're going to repeal the sanctions on Iran. Basically, full-fledged, no sanctions on Iran. So, right now, we're going to pledge that they're going to get $300 billion, billion with a B, bravo, B, billion dollars, 300 of them. We're going to give that money to the Iranian government. We're going to alleviate sanctions that we have placed on their country. Economic freedom, the mission to strangle Iran economically, has been a rousing success. The Iranian government is at their weakest point they have been in 40 years. They have no money. They cannot pay their troops. The populace in Iran is poised for an uprising. And what you're going to do while they are at their weakest, most vulnerable point is allow them to recover, give them a ton of money, infuse their country with cash so that they can prop up their theocratic Islamist regime again. This is a terrible loss for the United States. This isn't status quo. This is a loss for the United States. It is absurd that they would entertain the notion. The last time when Barack Obama did this, when they gave Iran, they said, well, that's Iranians' money. It's Iran's money. All we're doing is allowing them to access it. Well, in effect, you gave them a bunch of money, which was ridiculous because what Iran did with that money was they gave a bunch of it to Hamas. They gave a bunch of it to Hezbollah. And what Hamas did was stage October 7th. They used all that money to plot the largest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. That's what they did with the money that Obama gave Iran. What are they going to do with the money that Donald Trump is giving Iran? Because make no mistake about this, Donald Trump owns this. He can say J.D. Vance negotiated it. It was this guy. It was that guy. This is Donald Trump. Donald Trump's fault if this goes poorly. We'll get into that at the end. I just want to go through point by point. You should not give them money. No, we're not going to alleviate sanctions. We are negotiating from a position of strength. Why are you capitulating to them? It's crazy to me. Number 8, Iran will not develop nuclear weapons. Oh, again, this has been a promise for, let's do some math here, 50 years. 50 years. Since the 70s, Iran has said they're not going to develop nuclear weapons. For 50 years, they've said that. The reason why we're in this war in the first place is because we were told that they don't honor their word. Now, they're making us a super duper pinky promise. They're saying, hey guys, pinky's up. We promise we're not going to develop nuclear weapons, and we're supposed to say what? Oh, okay, perfect, thanks. I know we just had this whole war. We bombed your facilities. We launched a bunch of airstrikes against you, killed all your leadership. I know we just had this whole big nasty war. But now that you guys are just telling us you're not going to do it, I mean, that's fine. We should have done that in the first place. Why didn't we just ask them? Why didn't we just ask them in the first place? Hey guys, won't you just not do a nuclear weapon? And then they could have just pinky promised us then. Would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. Of course they're going to develop nuclear weapons, especially when you couple this with number 9 in the agreement. Number 9, they get to maintain their nuclear program. No, period. You don't get to have nuclear program. You don't get to have nuclear energy. You don't get to make a nuclear power plant. You don't get to have any radioactive material in your country, period. The U.S. gets it. We get it all. That's a victory. That is the only victory. If you allow them to have anything, you can only enrich uranium to this point. If you go past it, we're going to be really mad at you. We're going to wag our finger. We're going to say, no, don't do that. They were already doing this. They were enriching uranium past the point of civilian use. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is openly acknowledged that they were enriching uranium just below weapons grade. They were doing this before. You don't need to do that to have nuclear energy. You don't need to come anywhere close to it. They were already doing this. We're going to allow them to continue to have nuclear material in their country when they have shown time and again that they are not going to follow the international guidelines or the U.S. sanctions. They don't care. They're going to do what they want. Again, anything other than no nuclear program is a defeat for the Trump administration. This is ridiculous. We're going to, number 10, all the oil sanctions are lifted. right now, Iran has a very oil-rich country. They sell their oil to China. They sell it to North Korea. They sell it to Russia. They can't sell it to our friends and allies. We don't allow them to buy Iranian oil. We're going to let them just sell it anywhere in the world. Well, we're going to lift the oil sanctions so that Iran can sell their oil. So again, they can get their economy back on track so that they can what? Play nice? This is ridiculous. You are allowing a weakened opponent to run off and heal. And while they run off and heal, they're going to infuse their country with cash, restock, resupply, and come at the U.S. again. Ridiculous, terrible, terrible. Same, again, number 11, we're going to unfreeze assets. So all of the sanctions, all of this money that we have frozen, international money, we're going to unfreeze it. Just allow them access to it. We criticized Barack Obama. Remember that whole idea of pallets of cash? Barack Obama, he flew pallets of cash to Iran, dropped off billions of dollars. And his argument was that was Iran's money. Well, we didn't give them taxpayer dollars from the U.S., guys. We just unfroze their assets. They already belonged to Iran. We just gave it to them. Donald Trump's doing the same thing. We criticized Barack Obama for this. It was a terrible idea to give Iran money. I don't care if it's quote unquote their money. We shouldn't give it to them. That's a terrible idea. This is a bad, bad thing. Then number 12, excuse me. We're going to monitor the Memorandum of Understanding, make sure that it's maintained. Fine, fine, fine. Number 13 says they're going to start negotiations towards a final deal immediately. Fine, fine, fine. Number 14, the UN Security Council is going to endorse a binding resolution on the final deal. Okay, fine. Who cares what the UN has to say? Whatever. So those are the 14 bullet points. Okay? I want you to understand something. I have been, there's no way, if these 14 things are the things that they've agreed on, this is a loss for the United States. I can't believe we're at this point. But I have been defending the Donald Trump administration for this action. Last year, when we bombed the nuclear sites at Fordo, I said this was amazing. This was an unbelievably ballsy move from a gutsy president. No one else would have the courage to do what he did. They said, the U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence said, we really believe that Iran is almost capable of nuclear weapons. We've said that for a long time. People say, well, they've been saying that for 40 years. Okay, this is true. There have been times when Israel and the United States have said Iran is weeks away from a nuclear weapon. The reason why it hasn't happened in the past is because of covert action from the United States and from Israel. Israel especially. Israel has bombed Iran. Israel has assassinated Iranian nuclear scientists. Israel has hacked in and uploaded viruses and deleted data and really set back this nuclear program time and again. Last year, the United States stepped up and did it. I don't care what you think. Iran openly acknowledged they were enriching uranium past the point of civilian use, just below weapons grade. The only reason to do that is because they believed they were going to be capable of getting a nuclear weapon. That is it. Period. End of story. Full stop. There is no reason. If you want to sit there and say that they weren't doing anything wrong, you are mistaken or you're lying. That's it. Because they absolutely were. Everyone knows it. I supported Donald Trump when he did that. You had people like Tucker Carlson saying it was going to be World War III. What happened? We bombed the shit out of the facility. Nothing happened that was negative. The blowback on the United States, nobody died. Everything was great. The United States was fine. Fast forward to this year, Iran basically thumbed their nose at the United States, said, we're not working with you. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to help. We're not going to stop funding terrorism. We're going to keep building nuclear bombs. We gave them a chance to back out. Donald Trump said, okay, fine. Killed their leadership clash. We destroyed their ability to manufacture ballistic missiles. We have depleted their arsenal by 80% from what I've heard, or at least their capacity to manufacture ballistic missiles up to 80%. They have no nuclear program at the moment because it's buried under a mountain in Fordo. So they might have some nuclear dust still in the country, but they don't have a nuclear program. We have had a decisive victory with very, very minimal U.S. casualties. It has been a rousing success, a victory that cannot be overstated. It is a fantastic job by the Donald Trump administration to this point. His foreign policy in general, in the Middle East has been wonderful, as good as it gets, which is crazy to me to think that Donald Trump would be the guy who has the Middle East figured out when I would bet that he is not familiar with the culture, the history, knows the difference between Sunni and Shia, but he understands politics in the Middle East in a way that really educated guys like Barack Obama just don't. So we've done a great job to this point. This is a way, this memorandum of understanding is a failure. This means the United States has failed. Not only have we failed, this would mean the Democrats and the Republicans who have opposed this war in Iran would be right. Right now, they're not. Right now, they're wrong when they say that the United States, they got into a war. We don't know why. It has been costly to American taxpayers because they're paying higher prices at the pump and inflation, blah, blah, blah. They could say this. They're wrong. Obviously, everyone is paying a little bit more at the gas pump. That's not wrong. But to say that we haven't gotten anything out of it, I think is substantially wrong. That is just misguided to believe that the United States has not achieved some great strategic objective, uh, some strategic goals in the region with like the objectives that we set out to achieve, setting back their nuclear capacity, degrading their ballistic missile capacity. These are all great. Killing their leadership who was in bloody opposition to us. These are all great things that we've achieved, like our strategic objectives that we set out. They weren't clearly defined, but I think when you really dive into Donald Trump's thinking, they did a great job. So we've done that. That's great. This agreement right here, giving Iran a bunch of money, allowing them to maintain their nuclear ambitions, even though they pinky promise they're not going to, they get to maintain their nuclear program. No, they get to pretend, we're going to pretend that they still are in control of the strait, that we have to allow them to allow us to move things through the strait. What are we gaining? Okay, so if we give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt on why we started the war, they're still going to have a nuclear program. So we didn't fix that. They're going to have the same regime. So it's not a regime change. They're still going to have the same regime. Did we hurt them economically? No. They're going to be better off under this deal than they were before the war. They're going to have more money to play with than they're going to know what to do with. That's worse for America. This deal is not only a failure of the war, it is arguably worse than the deal signed by Barack Obama. This memorandum of understanding is a joke, and the administration should be embarrassed by it. I say that. If you watch the show at all, you know for a fact I am a big fan of many of the things that Donald Trump has done. I have been a big Donald Trump supporter. I voted for him in the last two elections. If JD Vance, I've read JD Vance's book. I think he's a very smart guy. I disagree with him a little bit more than Donald Trump on some things. But if this is his idea, of victory, how could I vote for him in the future? If he thinks that this is a good path forward for America, then what are you doing in the Middle East? Get out of there. Go back to Ohio. You can be a senator. A state senator can't get me in that much trouble. I live in Missouri. So, but if this is your foreign policy moving forward, you think this is the way in the Middle East to make things better by giving Iran, the largest funder of terrorism in the world, hundreds of billions of dollars? Releasing, oh, it's their money? I don't give a shit. Do they have access to it? No. Then it's our money. Giving them access to it makes it their money. I know we're not giving them U.S. taxpayer dollars. That's great. But if they don't have access to that $300 billion or however many billions of the sanctions we're going to lift or the assets we're going to unfreeze, if they don't have access to that money, you are giving them money. You're making them stronger. This is ridiculous. I get it. You want an off-ramp in Iran. We don't need one. I understand. Maybe you're worried about the midterms. Maybe you're worried about your future, JD Vance, and your run for the presidency. Let me tell you something. If you fail here, I'm not going to vote for you. I understand. You're going to win more votes if you get out of Iran than you're going to lose if you stay. I get it. But let me tell you right now, in the future, when we battle Iran again, people are going to look back on your failure and it's going to be your fault. I get it. It's not your fault that we're dealing with Iran right now because we've been enemies with them since the 70s. But right now we have an opportunity to, from an economic standpoint, just strangle them until that country, the regime, either collapses, the people rise up and do what they should do, which is overthrow that regime. But we shouldn't give them money. It costs us very little to continue the course that we are, and it costs them a ton. They have nothing. They are dying a slow death of exposure out there in the Middle East. And we're going to throw them a bunch of water and food for some unknown reason because we don't have the stomach to just stay in Iran for a little bit. I get it. But this isn't Iraq. We don't have 100,000 people in the push. We're not getting hundreds of Americans killed a week. We've had, I don't know the exact number, 14 Americans who died. Every one of them sad, every one of them a tragedy. But for fighting a war in the Middle East, 14 people, 14 casualties is not that much. It just isn't. It's the cost that we have to pay long term. How many more people are going to die from Iranian-backed terrorist attacks around the world with this money you're giving them? It's crazy to me that we think this is a victory. And again, I give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. But if this deal in 60 days, if this is the deal that they signed, if it looks anything like this, make no mistake about it, the Democrats and the Republicans who said that this was a terrible idea are going to have been right. They're not right now. I don't believe that they are. I think bombing Iran was the right choice. I do. I think that. This will make it the wrong choice. You're going to take what should be a victory and turn it into a defeat through cowardly diplomacy. Diplomacy is great. We tried diplomacy. It didn't work. Iran lied and cheated and attacked our allies. They didn't want to do diplomacy. So they lost the war, and now you're giving them a victory for no reason. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Anyway, let's move on. I could just continue saying I hate it for forever. My recommendation, by the way, is stay the course. We can just keep doing what we're doing. We don't need to make a change. We are not the ones losing. The Iranian, I'm not sure who he is, the lead negotiator goes on Iranian TV and says, yeah, the U.S. loses. Look at this agreement we got, guys. We're doing a fantastic job. They put out the same memorandum, and they're saying it's a victory. Is it a victory for us? In what way, J.D. Vance? Explain to me what's good about this. The victory is, let me tell you the victory. The victory is no nuclear program in Iran, period. Full stop. End of discussion. That's the victory. You give over all your nuclear materials to the United States. That's the only victory to me. They don't want to do it, then they can continue to starve. That's it. There's no victory outside of that. Oh, we set back their ambition again and again and again. The next Democratic president who gets in there is going to do the same thing Obama did, the same thing Joe Biden did, and they're going to try and play footsie with Iran and make nice. And it's going to be a terrible thing. If they have no nuclear material, it doesn't matter. I don't care. They're going to fund terrorism no matter what. Fine. I accept this. But as long as they don't have nuclear material, that's a victory to me. That is my criteria. Anyway, let's move on. Talk about our topic 2, UFC 250. Freedom 250. I'm a huge UFC fan. I love the UFC. Think it's great. Think it is my favorite sport, hands down. There was an idea that they had. Donald Trump goes to some of the UFC fights. He is a fair, he's a casual fan. You ask him, I've heard him on some podcasts, some interviews where people ask him UFC questions, and he has pretty decent answers. He's not as knowledgeable or a coach, but he's a good casual fan. You could tell he actually watches the UFC. He knows the people and he knows things. I asked him who his favorite fighter was. He said Khabib. Fine. It's pretty standard answer. A lot of people, their favorite fighter is Khabib. So I listen to him. He knows. He's not a poser. I think he genuinely likes the UFC. There was an idea to host it's kind of a birthday celebration for Donald Trump, but also a celebration of America because we are at the 250th anniversary of America. So they erected an octagon on the south lawn of the White House, and they had this giant UFC event. Very cool from that iconic photo in front of the White House to have the UFC cage. They built this big overhang in case of the weather, but it was interesting. It's an interesting idea, and it went pretty well. The event was fantastic. There was this big controversy where the I wonder actually if I can find this picture. Hold on one second. There was a big controversy because the weather. Oh my gosh, the weather was going to be crazy, and everyone was worried about possibility of cancellation because of rain or winds or anything. Let me see if I can find this picture of it's a pretty famous picture. Yeah. Okay. So take a look at this picture real quick. This was the picture going around. Oh, hello. Hey, go back. We don't need to see all that. So this was the picture going back from the UFC or prior to the UFC event. You saw these 250 looks a bit uncertain. There was here's the event. All right. So you have this giant storm that is heading towards Washington, and everyone says, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to cancel the event." You saw all these people online celebrating, ha ha ha, how silly! The UFC is gonna get canceled. Good, good, good. And then you had this incredible thing that happened, where right when the event was going to start, basically the storm split into two parts and went around the White House, and you had absolutely gorgeous weather at this event. It was unbelievable. It couldn't have been better. No rain, not a cloud in the sky. What you did have was some iconic photograph of lightning, a rainbow and lightning hitting Washington D.C. It was unbelievable. The event, it goes on. There's no delay. There's no rain. Weather's perfect. Everyone's pumped. You had 80,000 people outside the White House watching the event on these giant screens. You had 4,000 people who were actually allowed onto the White House grounds, many of them active members of the military. It was great. It was an unbelievable event. The fights were outstanding. There's an app called Verdict MMA. I love it. I love the Verdict MMA app. You can make predictions on fight, and they recently added this thing where you can rate the fight cards. And the past couple UFCs, we've had a couple good ones, go all the way back to May. So the people who watch UFC take UFC pretty seriously. The people who use this app are the kind of people who they're going to predict fights, they're going to rate fights. They're these kind of people. Here are the last couple UFC events. You had the ratings. You had one that was a 6.1. You had a 3.4. That was a bad one. You had a 7.7. You had an 8.6. That was a big one. 5.4, 6.8, 7.3, 6.1. UFC Freedom 250, 9.5 rating as a UFC event. It was an unbelievable event. I believe it is the only UFC event that ever had every fight on the main card ended in a knockout. It was unbelievable. The fights were great. I'm going to talk about a couple of them briefly. Diego Lopez got the knockout. Bo Nickel, who is one of my personal favorite fighters out there right now. I loved watching him wrestle when he was in college. He got a knockout. The Rufy Chandler fight was fun. Josh Hochnick, a little bit of controversy. He called Michelle Obama a man. I find this distasteful. I don't. I get it. Everyone wants to talk about Donald Trump. Everyone makes jokes all the time. But I really making fun of Michelle Obama's appearance is kind of lowbrow. It's not nice. And I make fun of people all the time. You can make fun of people. That's fine. But again, it's not, I don't like Michelle Obama. I don't like a lot of the things that she did, but calling her a man, just a little trashy. The Sean O'Malley fight, also great. The two big fights, so the main fights on the card were both excellent. Cyril Gane knocked out Alex Pereira, and then you had the main event, and this was one of the biggest upsets I've ever seen. Ilia Topuria, undefeated, two-time bad, world champion, excellent boxer, some of the best boxing you see in the UFC. Knocked out by Justin Gaethje. Quit on his stool. Not a great look, but he fractured his orbital. He got beat up. It was bad. First round, what is it? I guess trying to remember how I had it scored. I think it was the first round. Hold on. I got the scorecard right in front of me. Okay, yeah. So the first 2 rounds, Topuria won the first round easy. I remember this now. He gets the takedown, wins the first round. Second round, same way, wins pretty easily. The first round was close. That's what it was. The second round, he gets a takedown, controls him, beats him up. Very, very comfortable Ilya round. The third round comes around, and Justin Gaethje hurts him bad. And it seemed like a couple times he was about to finish Ilya. The fourth round comes around, Ilya getting beat up a little bit. And then he quit on his stool in between the fourth and the fifth round. Unbelievable fight. Maybe fight of the year candidate. And the American one, Justin Gaethje's an all-American wrestler. He's American as it gets. Ilya Topuria's from Spain. I believe he fights out of Spain still. But anyway, a great fight. Unbelievable event. Everyone who actually watches UFC was super happy. People were upset. First of all, they were rooting for it to fail. They said it's trashy. This is redneck. The UFC is a sport. It is a very popular worldwide sport. If they had erected there would be just as much of an upset, I think, if Donald Trump put up a badminton court or hosted Major League Pickleball or a basketball court and hosted whatever event he was going to host on the lawn was going to be ripped by people who hate Donald Trump. That was just the way it was going to be. But there's something also visceral about UFC because it codes right. It's silly to think that it's a right-wing sport because many of the people who watch it are not right-wing. But for whatever reason, it codes right. Maybe because Donald Trump goes to the events. Maybe because Dana White tends to be a big Republican backer. Whatever the case may be, it codes right. And so because of that, and I think part of it just because it's so masculine. It's so traditionally masculine of a sport. That two grown men trying to impose their will on one another. That there's something about that is just the quest for dominance that is a traditional masculine value that does not code left at all. So it codes right. People were upset. They wanted it to fail. They were rooting for it. They were laughing. Even God hates Donald Trump and making his birthday party, raining on his birthday party. And then it's perfect. And now people are upset that it happened and they were rooting for it to fail. There also was a plot that was foiled for people who were going to attack it. They were going to throw bombs. They were going to shoot it up. This guy, Abraham Alvarez, who was the ringleader of a plot that was going to carry out a mass casualty event at the White House. He's an illegal immigrant from Mexico. He was actually one of those dreamers that was allowed to stay under Barack Obama. And the 5 co-conspirators were also arrested. They were going to use drones equipped with explosives to drop them over the fence and force an evacuation. They were going to shoot people. It's terrible ideas. But they were going to do all this stuff. And it just goes to show people are broken. The idea that you're going to go to a sporting event at the White House and kill people because Donald Trump is bad. You don't like him. He's a mean, nasty guy. The amount of people who were in there hating, saying that it's just a trashy event or that it's an egomaniac. I don't care. I don't care. I think it's awesome. I think any sport at the White House. I think also there's a precedent for hosting sports at the White House. Barack Obama famously built the basketball court because he likes to shoot hoops. That's cool. Teddy Roosevelt had a boxing ring in the White House. He used to actually box people himself until he went blind in one eye from sparring. So I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. This is silly. It's like the ballroom thing. Everyone's upset. First of all, this is a temporary structure. It's silly to think that Donald Trump can't do what he wants. It's the White House. He lives there. I understand it's the people's house, but this is a temporary structure. And it costs the taxpayers no money. So it's just silly all around that people were this upset about it. You saw people, I had somebody say it was 16% of America thought it was a good idea. Man, I don't care anymore. I don't care what polls say. I don't care if Donald Trump was to do something that everyone hates. It doesn't matter to me because he's the president. He was overwhelmingly elected twice. And now he's going to govern as he sees fit. I think running your life by polls of what Americans want, it's ridiculous. I don't care. I can show you a poll right now that says 100% of people in this apartment thought it was awesome. It doesn't matter. I don't care because polls have shown themselves to be wrong just time and again. Donald Trump had a 20% chance of winning in 2016. That was according to all the polls. All the polls said Hillary Clinton was definitely going to win, and everything said this. And then it turned out all the polls were wrong. The state-by-state polls were really wrong. The national polls were kind of right. The state-by-state polls were really wrong in many cases. We've seen that time and again where you can manipulate data. You can pick your sample size. You can pick your demographic, who you're targeting, and you can get polls to say whatever you want. I don't care. The people, for example, at work, this is anecdotal. I understand. But the people I work with all thought it was awesome. They had guys who don't even watch the UFC who were like, "Did you see that event? It was cool." And I said, "Yeah, man, it was awesome. I watch UFC all the time. I would have watched it if it was on Mount Everest. It didn't matter to me that it was at the White House. I thought it was cool that they celebrated America and Donald Trump did these things." But anecdotally, I haven't met one person in my personal life outside of the internet who says that the UFC happening at the White House was the worst thing that ever happened. Or I can't believe what the sanctity of the White House grounds has been violated. I remember when a bunch of topless transvestites jumped up and down while Biden celebrated Pride Month, and no one seemed to think that that was a bad idea. Or if they did, I didn't hear them saying Biden should come out and apologize. But the double standard that Donald Trump does something at the White House that people don't like, and it's the worst thing ever. The hypocrisy knows no bounds on the left. That has always been true, but it is getting worse recently. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about this. I just want to say it was an awesome experience, and I hope everyone got to watch it because it was really cool. And I hope he just continues to do things like this. We are in a very important year for this country, and celebrating America, even if it's something in the grand scheme of things that's silly, like hosting the UFC at the White House for the troops. Like, that's awesome. We just need to do more of that. Celebrate America. It's great. And people who didn't watch it, they didn't understand. Every video was about how awesome America is, how great our history is, how the military is the best thing that ever happened. All of the guys, the armed forces members who got to sit in the audience or escort the fighters to the ring, you could tell those guys were having a blast. That's the people that this is for. It's for the people who want it. If you don't like it, don't tune in. It's fine. But anyway, we're going to leave it there for the week. I just wanted to mention how, if you didn't have the chance, you should go watch that event. It was really cool. And it was just fun. The fights were great. Ignoring everything else, the fights, UFC Freedom 250, were unbelievable. We're going to leave it there for the week. As always, people, questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments below. And if your comment is salacious, if it invokes the worst of the emotions, hate, envy, lust, we'll probably read it on the show because I'll find it amusing. So leave those comments down below and maybe you'll get read on the show next week. Until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful week and I will catch you next Friday.